The Valkyrie research vessel drifted through the dark emptiness of space like a dead leaf on still water. Its beautiful curved hull, once bright silver and blue, now showed burn marks and damage along its side. Inside the ship, emergency lights blinked red and orange, casting strange shadows on the walls. Commander Thelius stood at the center of the control room, his four thin arms wrapped around his body in a gesture of worry. His skin, which normally glowed with soft purple light, had faded to a dull gray. He was afraid, and he could not hide it. His species, the Valkyrie, had never learned to hide their emotions. They had never needed to. "How much time do we have?" he asked. His voice quiet and tired. Science Officer Yelena checked her instruments with shaking hands. She was younger than Thelius, barely 40 cycles old, and this was her first voyage into deep space. "Life support will fail in 16 hours, she said. "Maybe less. The backup systems are damaged too." Thelius closed his large dark eyes for a moment. 47 lives depended on him. 35 adult researchers who had devoted their lives to studying distant stars. And 12 younglings, children who had been brought along to learn about the wonders of the universe. Now those children huddled together in the sleeping quarters, trying to stay warm as the ship grew colder. "The distress beacon," Thelius said. "Is it still sending?" "Yes, Commander. It has been broadcasting for 6 hours now. But we are far from any known shipping routes. The nearest Valkyrie colony is 30 days away at normal speed. And we have no speed at all," Thelius said. The engine room was completely destroyed. Yelena had tried to explain what happened, but even she did not fully understand it. One moment the engines were running perfectly. The next moment there was an explosion, fire, and screaming. 3 crew members had died instantly. The rest had barely escaped before the emergency doors sealed. Thelius walked slowly to the large window at the front of the control room. The Corin Nebula stretched out before him, beautiful clouds of purple and gold gas that glowed with the light of young stars. His people had traveled here to study the birth of new solar systems. Instead, they might witness their own deaths. "Sir," said Navigation Officer Peller from his station, "the beacon is reaching into uncharted space. There might be other species out there. Species we have never contacted." "That is our only hope," Thelius replied. "But it is a small hope. The Galactic Council has mapped most of this region. If there were friendly species nearby, we would know about them." What Thelius did not know, what no Valkyrie knew, was that their distress signal was crossing into a region of space that the Council had deliberately avoided for 300 years. The records called it the Quarantine Zone. At its center was a small yellow star with 8 planets. The third planet from that star was classified as Category Omega, the most dangerous classification possible. The planet was called Earth. Far away, on the other side of the nebula, the United Earth Defense Force Patrol cruiser Ironclad moved through space on a routine mission. The ship was nothing like the elegant Valkyrie vessel. It was angular and hard, covered in thick armor plates and weapon systems. It looked like what it was, a machine built for war. Lieutenant Commander Katie Morgan sat in the captain's chair, reading a report on her tablet. She was 34 years old, with short auburn hair and green eyes that seemed to notice everything. A thin scar ran along her jaw, a souvenir from a pirate attack 3 years ago. She had killed the pirate who gave her that scar. She had killed 6 others that day too. "Commander," said Lieutenant Danny Ortiz from the communications station. He was a young man with dark hair and a friendly face, but his expression now was serious. "I am picking up something strange." Katie looked up. "What kind of strange?" "A distress signal. Very weak. I almost missed it. Human?" "No, ma'am. The language is completely unknown. But the pattern is definitely a distress call." Someone is in trouble out there. Katie set down her tablet and stood up. She walked over to Danny's station and looked at the data on his screen. The signal was coming from deep in the nebula, from coordinates that were not on any of their maps. How far? She asked. About 6 hours at maximum burn. Katie thought for a moment. The Ironclad was supposed to patrol the border between human space and the territories of the Thrall Confederacy. They were not supposed to go into uncharted regions without permission from command. But somewhere out there, someone was dying. Play the signal, she said. Danny pressed a button. A voice filled the control room, speaking words that none of them understood. But they did not need to understand the words. The fear in that voice was universal. The desperation was something any living creature could recognize. Run it through the translation software, Katie ordered. The computer worked for several seconds. Then a mechanical voice spoke. This is the Volcari research vessel Starlight Harmony. Our engines have been destroyed. Life support is failing. We have 47 souls aboard, including 12 children. Please, if anyone can hear us, we need help. We are dying. The control room went silent. Katie looked at her crew. She saw Danny's young face full of concern. She saw Weapons Officer Megan Cole gripping her chair with white knuckles. She saw Chief Engineer Marcus Webb already calculating how fast they could reach those coordinates. We are not supposed to be there, Danny said quietly. Command will ask questions. Command can ask all the questions they want, Katie replied. There are children on that ship. She walked back to her chair and sat down. Her voice was calm and steady when she gave the order. Set course for those coordinates. Maximum speed. Yes, ma'am, said Navigation Officer Carlos Reyes. His hands moved over the controls without hesitation. And Danny? Wake up the Marines. Tell Gunnery Sergeant Nate Dawson that we might have a rescue operation. Danny nodded and reached for the intercom. In her chair, Katie Morgan stared at the stars ahead. She did not know what they would find at those coordinates. She did not know if they would arrive in time. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity had clawed its way up from the mud of a violent planet. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. They had learned to split atoms and travel between stars. And through all of it, through all the blood and death and struggle, they had never lost the one thing that made them human. When someone called for help, humans answered. The Ironclad turned toward the nebula and accelerated into the unknown. On the dying Volcari ship, Thelius felt a small moment of hope. The distress beacon was still broadcasting. Someone might hear it. Someone might come. He did not know that his signal had reached the most dangerous species in the galaxy. He did not know that help was coming from a world that had killed 99% of all species that ever lived on it. He only knew that somewhere in the vast darkness of space, there might be someone willing to save them, and he was right. 6 hours passed like 6 years for the Volcari. The ship grew colder with each passing moment. The emergency lights flickered more often now, sometimes going dark for several seconds before coming back on. In the sleeping quarters, the younglings pressed close together under thin blankets, their small bodies shivering. Commander Thelius had not slept. He walked through the ship again and again, checking on his crew, offering words of comfort he did not feel. His hearts, both of them, beat too fast. His skin had lost almost all of its glow. He looked like a ghost walking through a tomb. Commander! Yelena's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I am detecting something. Thelius rushed to the control room as fast as his tired legs could carry him. What is it? Another ship? Yes, sir. It just appeared out of faster than light travel. It is approaching us at high speed. For one beautiful moment, Thelius felt pure joy. Someone had heard them. Someone had come to save them. Then Yelena's face changed, and the joy turned to ice in his stomach. "Sir, this ship, I have never seen anything like it." She put the image on the main screen. Every Valkyrie in the control room stopped breathing. The ship that approached them was a nightmare made of metal. It was all sharp angles and hard edges, covered in plates of thick armor that looked like the scales of some ancient beast. Along its sides, Thelius counted dozens of what could only be weapons. Tubes and barrels and things he could not identify, all pointing outward like the spines of a poisonous creature. What species builds such a thing? Whispered Pell or Dot. No one had an answer. The alien ship slowed as it came closer. It moved with a kind of grace that seemed wrong for something so brutal. Like a predator approaching prey, careful and controlled. Then the communication system activated. A face appeared on their screen, and several Valkyrie cried out in fear. The creature was terrifying. Its eyes faced forward, like a hunter. Eyes faced forward, like a hunter. Its mouth was full of flat white teeth. Its skin was a strange pinkish color, stretched over a face with hard bones underneath. Short reddish hair covered the top of its head. "This is Lieutenant Commander Katie Morgan of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Ironclad," the creature said. "We received your distress signal. What is your emergency?" The translation software turned the alien words into Valkyrie language, but Thelius could barely focus. This predator, had come in response to their call for help. His mind raced through every story his people told about dangerous species. Nothing matched what he was seeing. I am Commander Thelius of the research vessel Starlight Harmony," he managed to say. "Our engines have been destroyed. Life support is failing. We have 47 people aboard, including 12 younglings, children." The human female turned to speak with someone outside the view of the camera. When she looked back, her face had changed in a way Thelius could not read. The muscles around her eyes moved differently. Her mouth formed a different shape. "We are going to dock with your ship and come aboard," Katie Morgan said. "We have engineers who can help with your life support. We also have medical personnel if anyone is injured. Do not be alarmed by our appearance or our equipment. We are here to help you." The communication ended. Thelius stood frozen in place. "They're coming inside?" Peller said. "Those things are coming into our ship." "We have no choice," Yelena said quietly. "If they wanted to harm us, they could simply destroy us from a distance. Look at the weapons on that ship. We could not stop them." She was right. Thelius knew she was right. But knowing something in your mind and accepting it in your heart were two different things. The human ship moved alongside them with careful precision. Thelius felt the gentle bump as the two vessels connected. Then he heard the sound of the airlock opening and heavy footsteps in the corridor outside. The door to the control room slid open. The humans who entered were even more terrifying in person. They were thick with muscle, their bodies built for strength and power. Each one wore armor of some kind, gray and green plates that covered their vital areas. And each one carried objects that could only be weapons, strange devices made of metal and plastic that hung from straps on their bodies. But it was how they moved that scared Thelius the most. They moved like hunters. Their eyes swept the room constantly, watching everything. Their feet made almost no sound despite their heavy bodies. Every motion was controlled and purposeful. The female from the communication, Katie Morgan, entered last. She was shorter than the others, but carried herself with obvious authority. Her eyes, a strange green color, found Thelius immediately. "Commander Thelius?" she said. Her voice was softer in person. "I am Katie Morgan. These are some of my crew. We are going to help you." "Thank you," Thelius managed to say. "We are very grateful." Katie turned to a large male human with dark skin and kind eyes. Marcus, take your team to their engine room. See what you can do. Yes, ma'am, the male said. He gestured to two others, and they left the control room. We need to check on everyone aboard, Kitty said to Phileas. Especially the children. Are any of them sick or injured? No, but they are very cold and very frightened. Something changed in Katie's expression. The hardness softened slightly. Take me to them. Phileas led the human commander through the corridors of his ship. More humans were already moving through the vessel, carrying equipment and supplies. They nodded respectfully to Phileas as he passed, which surprised him. He had expected them to ignore him, to treat him as something beneath their notice. They reached the sleeping quarters where the younglings huddled together. When the door opened and the children saw the humans, they screamed. Phileas felt shame burn through him. I am sorry, he said to Katie. They have never seen. It is fine, Katie said. She held up her hand to stop the human soldiers behind her from entering. They are scared. That is natural. One of the human males, younger than the others with a round face and brown eyes, stepped forward. His name patch read Vasquez. He looked at Katie, who nodded. The young human walked slowly into the room. He moved differently than the others, making himself seem smaller and less threatening. Then he did something that shocked every Valkyrie watching. He sat down on the floor. The youngling stared at him with huge eyes. The human smiled, showing his teeth, but somehow the expression did not seem dangerous. He reached into a pocket on his armor and pulled out a small soft object. It was shaped like an earth animal, round and fuzzy with button eyes. Hey there, Pete Vasquez said. His voice was gentle, almost musical. My name is Pete. Do not be scared. We came a long way to help you. He held out the soft toy toward the nearest youngling, a small female with bright blue skin. She stared at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. That is called a teddy bear, Pete said. On my planet, children sleep with them to feel safe. You can keep it. The youngling clutched the toy to her chest. The fear in her eyes began to fade, replaced by something like wonder. Another human entered, a female with medical equipment. She spoke softly to the younglings as she checked each one, making sure they were not sick. She gave them warm blankets from the human ship and small packets of food. Delius watched all of this with growing confusion. These creatures looked like predators. They moved like predators. They carried weapons and wore armor and flew ships built for war. Everything about them screamed danger, but they sat on floors to seem less frightening. They carried toys for scared children. They wrapped younglings in blankets and fed them with gentle hands. I do not understand, Thelia said quietly to Katie. Your species. You are clearly built for violence. Your ship, your weapons, your bodies. Why do you help us? Katie looked at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was serious. Commander, my species did not choose to be what we are. We evolved on a very dangerous planet. Everything there wanted to kill us. The weather, the animals, even the plants. We had to become strong to survive. She paused, watching Pete make another youngling laugh with a funny face. But we also learned something important. We learned that the only way to survive was to help each other. Alone, a human is just meat. Together, we conquered our world. Compassion is not weakness for us. It is our greatest strength. She turned back to Phileas, and for the first time, he saw something warm in her predator eyes. You called for help. We came. That is what humans do. In the engine room, Marcus and his team were already working on repairs. Life support would be restored within the hour. The Valkyrie would survive. They did not know that survival was only the beginning of their problems. The engine room of the Valkyrie ship was a mess of burned metal and melted wires. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb had seen combat damage before, had repaired ships that had been through battles and collisions and near misses with asteroids. But something about this damage made him stop and stare. "That is not right," he said to his assistant. Technical specialist Laura Quinn looked up from the panel she was examining. Laura was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind like a computer. She had joined the military to pay for engineering school and discovered she was very good at fixing things under pressure. "What do you mean?" she asked. Marcus pointed at the destroyed engine core. "Look at the blast pattern. This did not explode from the inside. Something hit it from the outside. Multiple times." Laura moved closer to examine the damage. Her expression grew darker with each second. "These marks," she said. "I have seen this before. In the classified briefings." "Which briefings?" "The ones about Kethrani hunting tactics." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The Kethrani were one of the worst species humanity had encountered since leaving Earth. They were raiders, pirates, and slavers. They preyed on weaker species, capturing them and selling them to labor camps across the galaxy. Humanity had fought several small battles against them, but the two species had never declared full war. "Are you sure?" Marcus asked. Laura nodded. "The Kethrani use a specific weapon to disable ships. It fires focus bursts that destroy engines without causing hull breaches. They want their prey alive. Dead slaves are worthless. We need to tell the commander." They found Katie in the control room, talking with Thelius about repair progress. When Marcus explained what they had found, Katie's expression did not change, but her eyes went cold and hard. "Commander Thelius," she said, "before your engines failed, did you detect any other ships nearby?" Thelius thought back to that terrible moment. I am not sure. Our sensors detected some strange readings, but we thought it was interference from the nebula." "Show me." Yelena brought up the sensor logs from before the attack. Katie studied them with the intensity of a predator examining tracks in the dirt. After a moment, she pointed at the screen. "There and there. Those are not nebula interference. Those are ships running with low power signatures. Someone was watching you before the attack. But why?" Thelius asked. "We are researchers. We have nothing of value." Katie turned to look at him. Her face was grim. "Commander, in this galaxy, people are valuable. Your crew would be worth a fortune on the slave markets." Thelius felt sick. The idea of slavery was ancient history to his people. They had not practiced it for thousands of years. The thought that someone would hunt them like animals, capture them, sell them, it was too horrible to process. "The Kethrani disabled your ship and left," Katie continued. "They will be back to collect you. Based on their usual patterns, I estimate we have maybe 4 hours before they arrive. Then we must run." Peller said, "We can transfer to your ship and escape." "We could try," Katie said. "But the Ironclad is a patrol cruiser, not a transport. With your entire crew aboard, especially the children, we would be slow. Too slow. Kethrani raiders would catch us before we reach safe space." "Then what do we do?" Thelius asked. He hated how weak his voice sounded. He hated feeling so helpless. Katie was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at Danny, who had been listening from the communication station. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication that Thelius did not understand. "Commander," Katie said, "my species has a saying. The best defense is a good offense. Do you know what that means?" I think so. We are not going to run. We are going to stay here, repair your ship as much as we can, and wait for the Kethrani to come." "Wait for them?" Thelius could not believe what he was hearing. "But they are warriors. They have conquered dozens of systems." Danny Ortiz laughed. It was not a mean laugh, but it carried a weight that made Thelius's skin tingle. "Sir, no disrespect, but you do not understand what you are dealing with. The Kethrani are predators, yes. They are used to hunting prey that runs, prey that hides, prey that begs for mercy. He stood up from his station and walked closer. Even among humans, Danny was not the biggest or the strongest. But something in the way he moved made Thelius step back. They have never hunted humans before, Danny said. They do not know what we are. They do not know where we come from. Where do you come from? Yelena asked quietly. Earth, a planet with twice the gravity of most habitable worlds. A planet with over 30 million species, most of them trying to kill each other at all times. A planet where the weather can kill you, the water can kill you, the plants can kill you, and even the tiny organisms in the air can kill you. Danny's friendly face had become something else entirely. Something ancient and dangerous. We did not evolve on a paradise world like yours, Commander. We evolved in a constant war for survival. Every human alive today is descended from survivors. We are what happens when prey decides to fight back. We are what happens when the hunted become the hunters. Katie put her hand on Danny's shoulder, and he stepped back. The friendly young man returned, but Thelius would never forget what he had seen underneath. Commander Thelius, Katie said, I cannot promise that everyone will survive what is coming. Combat is unpredictable. But I can promise you this. The Kethrani will not take your people. Not while a single human is still breathing. She began giving orders. The Marines spread throughout the Valkyrie ship, setting up defensive positions. Marcus worked faster on the engines, trying to get at least some propulsion restored. Lavra rigged emergency force fields at key junctions to slow any boarding parties. Weapons officer Megan Cole ran calculations on her console. Commander, I am uploading new targeting data. Based on the classified files on Kethrani ships, their shields are designed to stop energy weapons. They are not designed for kinetic impacts. Railguns? Katie asked. Railguns will punch right through. And the grape-shot cannons for close range. Good. Load all tubes. I want every weapon ready to fire in 30 seconds of my order. Yes, ma'am. Thelius watched all of this with growing amazement. The humans moved with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. They did not argue, did not question, did not hesitate. When Katie gave an order, it was carried out immediately, and underneath their calm efficiency, Thelius sensed something else, excitement. These humans were not just preparing to defend the Valkyrie. They were preparing to fight, and some part of them was looking forward to it. You have done this before, Thelius said, fighting against stronger enemies. Katie looked at him. Our entire history is fighting against stronger enemies. Bigger animals, harsh climates, disease, each other. We lost millions of our people in those fights. But we never stopped fighting. We never accepted death lying down. She smiled, and for the first time, Thelius understood why humans showed their teeth when they were happy. It was a reminder, a warning. These creatures had clawed their way to the top of a world that tried to kill them every day. And they had done it with those teeth, those hands, that unbreakable will. The Kethrani think they are the predators, Katie said. They are about to learn they were wrong. In the sleeping quarters, Pete Vasquez sat with the younglings. He had taught them a simple game from Earth, something called rock, paper, scissors. The children laughed as they played, their fear forgotten for the moment. Pete smiled at them, but his other hand rested on his weapon. He had heard the announcement. The enemy was coming, and he would die before he let anyone touch these kids. That was the human way. Gentle with the innocent, savage with the guilty, merciful to those who surrendered, merciless to those who preyed on the weak. The Kethrani were coming. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The Kethrani raiding fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, exactly 3 hours and 47 minutes after Katie's prediction. 3 ships emerged from the swirling colors of hyperspace, each one larger than the ironclad, each one bristling with weapons. Commander Vorkith stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Collector. He was a massive creature, covered in thick gray scales and old scars. His eyes were black and cold, like the eyes of a shark. He had been raiding ships for over 30 years. He had captured thousands of slaves. He had killed anyone who resisted. "Report," he growled. "The Valkyrie ship is still there," his sensor officer said. "But there is another vessel with it. Small, unknown design." Vorkith leaned forward in his chair. An unknown ship was interesting. New species meant new markets. Perhaps this raid would be even more profitable than expected. Hail them. Tell them to surrender or be destroyed. The communication went out. For a long moment, there was no response. Then, a face appeared on Vorkith's screen. It was an alien, a female by the looks of it, with forward-facing eyes and exposed teeth. "This is Lieutenant Commander Katie Morgan of the UEDF Ironclad. You are approaching vessels under my protection. Turn around and leave, or you will be destroyed." Vorkith laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. "You threaten me? 1 tiny ship against 3? You are either brave or stupid." "I am human," Katie replied. "We are usually both. Human? I do not know this species. But I will enjoy learning more when I sell you to the flesh markets on Corvin." Katie's expression did not change. Final warning. Leave now, or this nebula becomes your grave. Vorkith cut the communication. Destroy the small ship. Disable the Valkyrie vessel. Kill anyone who resists. His fleet moved forward. On the ironclad, Katie watched them come. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. She had been in combat before. She knew the fear and the excitement that came with it. She knew how to use both. "Megan, what is their shield status?" "Standard Kethrani configuration. Energy absorption rated for plasma weapons. No kinetic resistance." "Perfect. Danny, send the message to Gunnery Sergeant Dawson. Tell him to prepare for boarding action. We are going to take their second ship." "Yes, ma'am." Katie gripped the arms of her chair. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." The ironclad surged forward. Vorkith's tactical officer stared at his screen in confusion. "Commander, the small ship is accelerating. Toward us?" "Yes, sir." "Direct approach. No evasive maneuvers." Vorkith felt a flicker of unease. No prey species charge predators. Every creature in the galaxy understood that when faced with a larger enemy, you ran or you hid. You did not attack. "They are insane," he said. "Open fire." The Kethrani flagship launched a barrage of plasma bolts. Brilliant blue energy streaked across space toward the tiny human ship. But the ironclad was already moving, rolling and twisting with a speed that seemed impossible for a vessel its size. Most of the shots missed entirely. The few that hit splashed against thick armor plates and did nothing. What is that ship made of? Vorkith demanded that no one had an answer. The ironclad closed the distance in seconds. When it was almost on top of the Kethrani flagship, it opened fire. The railgun slugs were small, only about a kilogram each. But they traveled at nearly 5% of the speed of light. When they hit the Bone Collector's shields, they did not splash or dissipate like energy weapons. They punched through like needles through paper. Alarms screamed across the Kethrani bridge. Warning lights flashed red. The ship shuddered as multiple impacts tore through its hull. Shields are not stopping them. The tactical officer screamed. "What kind of weapons are these?" "Return fire." Vorkith roared, but the ironclad was already past them, swooping around for another attack run. It moved like a living thing, like a hunting animal playing with its food. "Sir, The second ship is reporting boarders. Vorkith's blood ran cold. He had been so focused on the ship in front of him that he had not noticed the small pod that had launched from its hull. A boarding pod. Someone was inside his second ship. Gunnery Sergeant Nate Dawson was first through the breach. The magnetic clamps had locked onto the Kethrani hull, and the plasma cutters had carved a hole in less than 30 seconds. Now he and his 11 Marines were inside an enemy vessel, weapons hot, ready to fight. "Move fast," Nate ordered. "Control room is 3 levels up. Kill anyone who gets in the way." The Kethrani were bigger than humans. They were stronger too, with thick scales that could stop a knife blade. They had claws on their hands and feet, teeth like a crocodile, and a reputation for savage brutality in combat. None of that mattered. The first Kethrani guard came around a corner and found himself facing a human Marine with a shotgun. The weapon roared. The Kethrani flew backward, his scales shattered, his body broken. "Contact front," Nate called. "2 more." His Marines moved like water flowing around rocks. They used their smaller size to their advantage, ducking under the low Kethrani ceilings, squeezing through gaps too narrow for the larger aliens. Their weapons were designed for close combat, short-barreled guns that filled narrow corridors with deadly fire. The Kethrani tried to fight back. They were warriors, born and bred for violence. But they had never faced anything like this. The humans did not hesitate. They did not show fear. They did not give ground. Nate kicked open a door and found 3 Kethrani waiting with weapons raised. Before they could fire, he dropped and rolled, coming up underneath their guard. His combat knife found the gap in the first one's armor. His pistol barked twice, dropping the second. The third tried to grab him with those massive clawed hands. Nate broke the creature's arm at the elbow, then crushed its windpipe with a single strike. 9 seconds. 3 dead. "Move," he said, stepping over the bodies. Outside, the space battle had become a slaughter. The ironclad's railguns had torn the bone collector apart. Atmosphere vented from a dozen holes. Fires burned on multiple decks. Vorkith screamed orders that no one could follow. Then the missiles came. Katie had been saving them for the right moment. Now she unleashed all 12 tubes at once. The missiles were smart, splitting into smaller warheads as they approached the target. Point defense systems tried to intercept them, but there were too many, coming from too many angles. The bone collector disappeared in a ball of fire. "First target destroyed," Megan reported. Her voice was calm, professional. "Second target has been captured. Sergeant Dawson reports control room secured." "And the third ship?" "Running, ma'am." "Full retreat." Katie considered chasing them. A fleeing enemy was a dangerous enemy, one that might come back with reinforcements. But her mission was to protect the Valkyrie, not to start a war with the Kethrani Dominion. "Let them go," she said. "They will spread the word." "What word?" Katie smiled. It was not a kind smile. That humans are not prey. On the captured Kethrani ship, Nate Dawson dragged the surviving commander to the bridge. The creature was smaller than Vorkith had been, younger and less experienced. Its name was Torvak, and it was terrified. "Please," Torvak begged. "I surrender. I am a prisoner of war." Nate looked at the creature with cold eyes. He thought about the Valkyrie younglings in the other ship, the children who would have been sold as slaves if the humans had not arrived. He thought about all the other species the Kethrani had captured, all the lives they had destroyed. "You are not a prisoner of war," Nate said. "You are a slaver. You prey on the innocent. You sell children." Torvik whimpered. Nate leaned close. "But we are not like you. We do not kill prisoners, even ones who deserve it. You will stand trial. You will face justice. And every species in this galaxy will see what happens to those who hunt the helpless." He pulled the creature to its feet. Walk, and thank whatever gods you believe in that humans have laws. Back on the ironclad, Katie received the all-clear from Nate. The battle was over. The enemy was defeated or fled. The Valkyrie were safe. She let out a long breath and felt the tension drain from her shoulders. Another fight survived. Another group of innocents protected. "Commander," Danny said. "The Valkyrie ship is hailing us. Commander Thelius wants to speak with you. Put him through." Thelius's face appeared on the screen. His skin had regained some of its glow. His eyes were wide with something between shock and wonder. "Commander Morgan," he said, I do not have words. What you did. What your people did. We did what anyone would do," Katie said. "No." Thelius shook his head. "That is not true. No other species would do what you did. You came to save strangers. You fought against overwhelming odds. You risked your lives for people you had never met." He paused, struggling to find the right words. "We were warned about your species. The records called you dangerous. Category Omega, Deathworlders, and all of that is true. You are dangerous. You are the most terrifying creatures I have ever seen." His voice softened. "But you are also the most wonderful. Because all that power, all that strength, all that capacity for violence, you use it to protect the weak. You use it to save the innocent. You are not monsters, Commander. You are guardians." Katie felt something warm in her chest. Pride, perhaps? Or maybe just the simple satisfaction of a job well done. "Thank you, Commander Thelius. Now let us get your people home." The two ships turned towards safe space and began the long journey back to civilization. Behind them, the wreckage of the Kethrani raiding fleet. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within days, every species with access to the interstellar communication network had heard the story. A single human patrol ship had destroyed a Kethrani raiding fleet. 47 lives saved. A notorious slaver captured. And a message sent that no one could ignore. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The council chamber was enormous. A vast sphere floating in space near the center of civilized territory. Representatives from over 200 species gathered there. Creatures of every shape and size imaginable. Some breathed oxygen, some breathed methane, some did not breathe at all. They came from paradise worlds and harsh moons, from ancient civilizations and young spacefaring races, and now they had come to discuss humanity. High Counselor Valoran, an ancient being with silver skin and too many eyes, called the session to order. "We are here to address the incident in the Corin Nebula. The species known as humans, previously quarantined from galactic affairs, has made violent contact with both the Valkyrie Republic and the Kethrani Dominion." A murmur ran through the chamber. The quarantine of Earth had been established 300 years ago, when the first scouts had discovered what kind of world it was. The council had agreed that no species from such a place could be trusted. They were too dangerous. The humans destroyed 3 Kethrani vessels and killed over 400 personnel. Valoran continued. "This is an act of war. Excuse me." Every eye turned toward the speaker. It was Yelena, the young Valkyrie science officer who had been aboard the Starlight Harmony. She stood at the speaking platform, small and delicate among the massive beings around her. "The council has granted me permission to address this assembly as a witness to these events," she said. "I would like to correct some facts." Valman's many eyes blinked. "Proceed." "First, the humans did not start this conflict. The Kethrani attacked our ship without provocation, killing 3 of my colleagues and stranding us to die in space. They intended to capture us and sell us as slaves. 47 innocent researchers, including 12 children." She paused to let that sink in. "Second, the humans did not seek out this fight. They were on a routine patrol in their own territory when they received our distress signal. They traveled 6 hours at maximum speed to respond to strangers in need. They violated the quarantine zone. A Kethrani representative growled. They had no right to be there. We were the ones who sent the signal into quarantine space, Yelena replied calmly. We did not know what was there. We only knew we were dying. And when we called for help, the humans were the only ones who answered. She turned to face the full assembly. I have studied the records about Earth. I know what the scouts reported 300 years ago. A death world. A planet of constant violence. Creatures evolved to kill and survive in conditions that would destroy most species. We feared them. We quarantined them. We pretended they did not exist. Her voice grew stronger. We were wrong. The chamber fell silent. Yes, humans are dangerous. Yes, they come from a world that kills. Yes, they carry violence in their blood and their bones. But what we failed to understand is what kind of violence they carry. Yelena looked directly at the Kethrani representative. The Kethrani use violence to prey on the weak. They hunt, they capture, they enslave. They are predators in the worst sense of the word. But humans are different. They use their violence to protect. They fight not because they enjoy killing, but because they will not stand by while innocents suffer. She took a breath. When the human Marines boarded the Kethrani ship, they could have killed everyone aboard. They have the skill and the weapons. Instead, they captured the survivors and treated them humanely. They gave them medical care. They called them prisoners of war, not slaves, not meat. She pulled something from her robe. It was a piece of paper, carefully folded. One of the human soldiers, a young male named Pete Vasquez, sat with our children during the battle. He played games with them. He told them stories. He gave a little girl a toy from his own world to help her feel safe. She unfolded the paper. It was a drawing done in the clumsy style of a child. It showed two figures holding hands under two different suns. One figure was small and blue. The other was taller, wearing what might be armor. My niece made this for him. She is 4 years old. She was terrified when the humans first arrived. Now she asks every day if Pete is coming back to visit. Yelena held up the drawing for all to see. This is what humans are. Not monsters. Not mindless killers. They are protectors. They are guardians. They have the power to destroy worlds, but they choose to save them instead. She lowered the drawing and looked at the council. We have spent 300 years hiding from them. Perhaps it is time to learn from them instead. The chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates shouted in anger. Others called out in agreement. The Kethrani representative screamed about revenge and justice. The Valkyrie delegates stood and applauded. High Counselor Velrin raised his many arms for silence. It took several minutes for the noise to die down. This matter will require further deliberation, he said. But in light of the testimony presented, I move to suspend the quarantine of Earth pending full review. All in favor? The vote was not unanimous. The Kethrani and their allies voted against. But the majority carried. For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity was no longer isolated. On Earth, Katie Morgan received a message from Galactic Council headquarters. She was being summoned to address the assembly, to speak on behalf of her species. It was an honor that terrified her more than any battle. She also received a commendation from UEDF Command, along with a promotion she did not want. She tried to refuse it, but her superiors insisted. Captain Katie Morgan. It sounded strange on her tongue. Pete Vasquez received a package from the Valkyrie Republic. Inside was a letter, translated into English by diplomatic staff. It was from the little girl, Theron. The letter was mostly drawings, but someone had translated the few words written in childish Valkyrie script. Thank you for the bear. I named him Pete. I love you." Pete sat alone in his quarters for a long time after reading that letter. He was a Marine, trained to fight and kill. He had never thought much about why he served. It was just what he did. Now he understood. Across the galaxy, other species began to look toward Earth with new eyes. The Thrall Confederacy sent a diplomatic mission. The Vashan Collective requested trade negotiations. Dozens of smaller civilizations expressed interest in forming alliances with this strange, violent, compassionate species, and something else happened too. Other distress signals began to aim themselves at Earth. Ships in trouble, colonies under attack, refugees fleeing disaster. They had heard the story of the Valkyrie rescue. They knew what humans had done. When they called for help, humans answered. The Kethrani Dominion quietly removed humanity from their list of target species. They did not announce this publicly, but the word spread among their raiders. Do not attack human ships. Do not approach human space. There are easier prey in the galaxy. Some said the Kethrani were planning revenge. Others said they were too afraid to try. Only time would tell which was true. On the Ironclad, now commanded by Captain Morgan, life returned to normal. Patrols and routines, training and maintenance. But something had changed. The crew carried themselves differently now. They had proven something to the galaxy and to themselves. Danny Ortiz framed the news article about the incident and hung it in his quarters. Megan Cole wrote a letter to her family, explaining why she was proud to serve. Marcus Webb and Laura Quinn were already working on ways to improve the ship's systems for the next emergency. And Nate Dawson spent his off hours teaching basic combat techniques to interested Valkyrie visitors. They were not very good at it, but they tried hard, and Nate respected that. He had learned that courage came in many forms. One night, Katie stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. She thought about everything that had happened. The distress signal that started it all. The battle that changed everything. The future that lay ahead. Humanity had spent its entire existence fighting for survival. Against nature, against disease, against each other. They had earned their place in the universe through blood and sacrifice. But now they had a chance to be something more. Not just survivors. Not just warriors. But protectors. Guardians. A species that other species could turn to when all seemed lost. Katie smiled at the thought. Somewhere out there, right now, someone was in trouble. Someone was scared and alone and desperate for help. And when they sent their signal into the void, when they screamed into the darkness begging for salvation, humanity would hear them, and humanity would answer. That was who they were. That was who they had always been. Deathworlders with gentle hands. Killers with kind hearts. Monsters who saved children and fought for strangers. The galaxy had feared them for 300 years. Now the galaxy would learn to love them instead. Because when the darkness came, when the predators circled, when hope seemed lost and death seemed certain, there was one species that would always stand in the way. Humans. The protectors of the innocent. The guardians of the weak. The answer to every desperate prayer sent into the cold emptiness of space. And they were just getting started. The end.